dream, it goes nowhere.
Well, that's true. So, like I say, you have to have the desire, you have to have the decision, you have to decide to do it. And you basically have to put one foot in front of the other and then just keep on doing that, step after step after step. Well, these days there are so many books, so many online courses and things in how to start a business or how to become a writer, how to improve your public speaking ability, that people can get access to the information that they need. And that's really what we have to do. We have to find the information that we need to solve the problem that we have, or at least to put together the plan that we have. These days, a lot of people are hiring coaches, and life coaches and success coaches and people like that. And I do some of that myself over the internet. And, the information is available either in terms of free books, free courses. The amount of information that's available at the local library is blowing my mind, They have access to all kinds of videos, downloadable courses and things that I can take. And I'm sure it's the same with most libraries now locally, or I should say nationally, that the information is available, and find a club, find a group, Meetup is a website, meetup.com is a website that puts people with similar interests in touch with each other. And if you want to learn how to dance or how to play guitar or how to be a public speaker or how to write a book, how to do digital photography, the chances are good that there's a group somewhere in your local vicinity where you can meet other people and you can learn from them.
Well, that meetup really is cool because I use that. As you know, I ride a motorcycle. And during the summertime, there's a lot of people out there who ride motorcycles. They don't have nobody to ride with. So they get, after a while, they get, disappointed because, it gets boring sometimes riding all the time by yourself. So I would kind of put up weekend rides and stuff up on Meetup. And I would get 30, 40, 50 people. We'd go out on our motorcycles and, look like a big bad gang. Then we go out and spend the day, find a good place to eat, maybe have a beer and then come home the long way ride, and it, not just motorcycles, any activity, acting or you name it, arts, crafts. I mean, it's a good way to meet people.
How to do a one-person play. I took a course in that, and that got me started. No, you're exactly right. And if people go to meetup.com, they can find, when I check out Meetup in my local area, there's all kinds of groups like that. Nordic pole walking, and poetry clubs and writers clubs, people that want to go to movies, learn how to dance. There's all kinds. So, finding people that are actually doing what it is that you want to do, that's probably one of the greatest sources of inspiration. When I went to see this teacher, his name is T.J. Daw, he was doing a play in Vancouver, and I heard about the play, and I wanted to go see it, so I went to see it, and, I had probably heard of one-person play before, but it never really clicked, I never really gave it much thought. But this person was doing his one-person play, which was literally him standing in the middle of the room telling his story, right? And as I was watching this play and watching this guy, I thought to myself, geez, I could do this because I had this idea in the back of my mind about telling the story of this dream and writing my book, And after his play was over, I went up to him and I said, well, how can I get to do what you do? And he said, apply to the Fringe Festival. Well, I'd never thought of that, right? These Fringe Festivals, they're taking place in every big city all over the country and actually internationally, and I had never, ever thought about it, So when he said, apply to the Fringe Festival, that's what I did. And when I got accepted, then, of course, I was motivated to work like crazy and finish this play. And so when the play was done, it took me about 2 months to write the play and memorize it. And then, and of course, that was the other thing too, right? that there was an organization already in place in Nanaimo to set up and promote and run this Fringe Festival. So once I applied and I was accepted, then I was motivated to write the play, and of course I did, but all the other stuff was already in place. You know, they had people doing posters and people doing advertising, and they had the venues all reserved, and they were selling tickets. They had online websites selling the tickets and everything. So I was sort of caught up in this process. It wasn't like I had to do everything myself. You know, I just jumped in with a bunch of other people who were doing these one-person plays in Nanaimo. And so it's the same thing with any of your listeners. You know, if they want to learn to swim and they join a swimming club, there'll be all sorts of activities they can just get in. They can just literally jump in, you know.
Oh, yeah. Now, let's go back a few steps here. What did you do as your profession?
Well, I started when I was around 30, and I figured this dream out that I mentioned. After this research, I realized that, you know, there's a connection between goals and memories. And I had been reading, because the dream that I had when I was 10 years old said that I was going to be teaching people about how to be happy and how to be successful. So I had been reading all these books for the last 20 years about how to be successful. And I had read all these, you know, Think and Grow Rich and The Power of Positive Thinking and The Power of the Subconscious Mind and all of these books, you know. And so I had a whole raft of binders that were full of these notes about the principles of success, goal setting, visualizing, affirmations, positive thinking, changing your attitude, you know. And so when I had this insight that said, this is the reason why you need things like visualization and goal setting and affirmations, because you need to change your energy, change your attitude so you believe it's possible, and you clarify what your goal and your dream is, and you motivate yourself to take the steps to achieve it. So I started doing coaching. I called myself a success coach, and I started doing seminars and one-on-one coaching in Vancouver, and I did that for about 6 years. So I was a success coach, and I made my living from, I guess, the age of around 32 to 38, and then I decided to enroll in university and study philosophy and linguistics and psychology, which I did in 1986. So then when I came out of university, I started teaching English as a second language because I had a linguistics degree and a diploma. So I was teaching ESL, basically, in colleges around the Vancouver area. And then I think I told you one of the colleges I was working in went out of business, and I got offered a job by another college, which had a program in China. So they invited me to go to China to teach in China, and that's what I did. So in 2005, I went to China to teach in a Chinese university, but I was working for the Canadian college at the time, and I lived in China for almost 5 years.
Now, how did the Chinese treat you?
Oh, they treated me with tremendous respect. I really liked China. You know, I had a wonderful experience there, and I got married there. I met my wife there, and we got married in China. So, and now she's here. We came back here in 2009. So, I love China. I've been back pretty well every year since then. You know, we go back for a holiday, visit friends and family there. So I really like China.
Well, I got to ask you a question. You know, like you read in the news and stuff that the Chinese train their military, their young people in school to hate Americans. Did you run across any of that?
I didn't run across any of that at all. You know, I mean, when I see this kind of stuff in the newspapers, and now China's in the news, again, you know, they got a couple of Canadians that they've picked up because the Canadian government, I guess, because they had no choice, really, they have a treaty with the U.S., and the U.S. asked them to pick up this executive from the Huawei company. And so the Canadians picked her up, and now she's out on bail. But sort of in retaliation, the Chinese government picked up a couple of Canadians, though they haven't said it was because of this. You know, the fact that Canada arrested this corporate executive, you know, they didn't say that was the reason they picked these people up. But of course, everybody assumes that it is. You know, no, I didn't experience any of that, and because you know, when I was there, and I think it's true still, that if you're just an ordinary person, you know, you're a tourist or whatever, I mean, they treat you well, the same as everybody treats people well, you know. The people that run into trouble are oftentimes people that are either trying to agitate, you know, trying to cause, let's say, trouble, you know, because they have a different political system there. And so if you are a professional agitator or something, or if you're maybe a diplomat, or you're trying, you know, you're doing something that the government doesn't like, then, you know, they might kick you out of the country or something like that, or cancel your visa. But no, for me, as a tourist and as a teacher, I had nothing but great experiences when I was in China. And I think it's probably true to today. As a matter of fact, this week my wife is in China. She's coming back in a couple of days. And I could have easily gone to China on this trip with her, and I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't have experienced any difficulty at all, you know, because I'm just an ordinary traveling tourist, right?
We hope.
Yes.
Yeah, we only hope there, Anthony. So
that's right.
So what do you?
So no, the answer is I experienced nothing but great vibes all the time I was there, you know.
So what do you think is wrong with the young people in the school education? You know, going to school, junior high school, they come out with an education, but I don't think they're coming out with the right type of education to really get out and get a job, especially the type of jobs that's going to be happening in our future. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's always been tough. I remember when I was a kid, and we're, you know, similar ages, so I assume it was the same with you. You know, when we were teens and early 20s and things, you know, the idea of having to find a job, it was tough, you know, and it still is tough. So I guess the world in some ways hasn't changed that much, but I certainly wouldn't want to be a teenager these days, because it seems to me that the economy is so much less certain than it used to be. The divide between the haves and the have-nots in pretty well every country seems to be getting wider, you know. And but the one thing that I learned early on is that if I had some skill and was able to market myself, which I was always able to do, I was always able to find an audience, teaching people about visualizing or mindfulness or how to set goals and achieve goals, you know. So I was always able to earn a living by myself. And when I started teaching, then that just, you know, that was the easiest thing I ever did, was to teach. But I've mostly been self-employed for most of my adult life. And when I do this play, for example, I'm doing a play in January, in Victoria, the same play, you know. I'm following it up with a course. I have a 6-week course called How to Achieve Your Life's Goals. And so the play is going to be sort of an introductory to the course. So all the people that come to my play, they'll hear me talk about this course I have starting the following week. So I've been doing those courses and lecturing and writing since my early 30s. So that's, you know, 40 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
So I've always had, you know, several different streams of income. And to me, that's probably one of the keys for the future, you know, is to diversify as much as you can and try and have a little part-time business or some way that you can cushion yourself so that you don't rely on only one job, one employer. Because even some of the larger companies, you know, it's happening in Canada and in the U.S. right now, where some of the large automobile manufacturers are closing down. People who've been working in the unions there for years, now they're finding themselves out of work potentially.
And
so
that is really scary too. I gotta blame it, and I gotta say this because I really keep track of the economy, what's going and what's not going. And months ago, when the tariffs were put on with China, I started talking about it, and I had a lot of feedback